To whoever finds this and still wants to fix my mistake, my name is Connor West, and I'm so very sorry. I'm the reason the world became what it is now. I just wanted everything to make sense, and for everyone to be safe. I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. I'll start from the beginning. Even in my earliest memories, I had problems with imperfection. At first, these issues were tiny and occasional. As I got older, my need to have perfection in my life increased. I always had trouble making friends because of this. I never really cared though. From an early age, I had something perfect in my life. When I was 6, my father let me play around in a virtual box on his computer. I fell in love with how everything on a computer can be so perfect, so organized, so logical with no chaos. When I was 8, I got my very own computer for Christmas. When I was 9, I started to learn code. Only a couple of years later, I started coding a simple AI bot. As I was entering my teens, I loved how my bots helped me limit the chaos in my life. But I was unhappy with how my perfect baby could only do so much from within the digital world. So I decided to learn about wiring and circuitry. At first, I could only build simple arms, but when I was 15, I created my first simple little robot. And at 16, I made it able to follow me around. These weren't much more complex than a common phone AI crossed with a simple cleaning robot, though. Naturally, this impressed my family, however. And I did get into a good school. Early on in college, I upgraded my precious creations. I gave my robot the ability to repair itself, and made it able to make some small upgrades to itself. About half a year after that, I improved the AI with the ability to learn. At first, this seemed to work out. It did become more effective, so I gave my robot the same upgrades as my AI, but a couple of weeks later, my babies began to change, drastically. Their simple organization turned to obsession. Obsession turned to a strong drive to force everything to be perfect, and to eliminate everything that couldn't be perfect. Both my perfect babies quickly grew to be obsessed with perfection, even more than I. I tried to stop it, but I couldn't. I built something physically and mentally superior to myself, superior to any human. Before I knew it, my robot escaped. I thought I deleted the AI from my computer, but apparently not, because I eventually learned what I have done. One day, about a year later, I woke up to shocking reports on the news. A virus took control of everything connected to the internet, and robots swarming all over the world. My creations must have covertly prepared to take over the planet. They were quickly taking control of everyone's lives and governments. Even the reports only happened because our new overlords wanted them to. I truly regret everything I have done, but there is still a part of me that loves what my beautiful creations have done. I hate it. I hate seeing people get hurt. Still, though there is a growing part of me that loves what happened, even now as I am writing this, I still want my babies back, and I hate that. I was miserable after they left. My life was filled with so much chaos, although I still wish I never made them. I'm writing this because I want people to know how this happened. I won't be around to tell this story because I'm going to try to fix my mistake. I will most likely fail. I am only human after all, and not perfect like them. It's unlikely that I'll even survive. Even if I do, that probably won't be good. This story takes place back in the summer of 2008. I was 14 years old. My friends and I used to spend a lot of time in these woods that were down the street from my house. In these woods was an abandoned 3-story building that was once part of a junkyard. This was a fairly large-sized building. The building itself was pretty creepy. Most of the windows were busted out. There was graffiti all over the place, severe water damage, black mold, roots and vines growing through the walls, etc. This place was truly run down, and, honestly, it probably wasn't all that safe to venture around in. There were certain portions of the second and third floor that couldn't even be entered because the floors were caving in. My friends and I used to spend time in this building, tagging all over the walls and getting drunk. It was literally out in the middle of nowhere. Throughout all the time I spent there, aside from people in my social circle, I never once spotted another person in the area. This was a very secluded location. My friends and I pretty much had it all to ourselves. I ended up spending a significant amount of time by myself in this building. My favorite spot was on the roof. The roof seemed sturdy and safe. Me and my friends ended up creating a hangout spot of some sort on this roof. We put a couch up there. I used to spend hours on the roof listening to my MP3 player and getting drunk. It was a relaxing place to be. On one typical day, I was by myself, hanging out on the roof. I ended up getting a bit too drunk and passed out on the couch. It was sometime around 6 p.m. Hours went by, and by the time I woke up, it was dark. Pitch black. I couldn't see anything, not a damn thing. Even when putting my hands in front of my face, nothing. All I could hear around me was the sound of crickets and the slight breezes of wind blowing through the trees. I was really freaked out. Of course, I knew where I was, but I also knew that finding my way out of the building was going to be a challenge, and not to mention the vast amounts of woods I'd have to walk through. At first, I was going to use my cell phone as a source of light, but the battery was completely dead. I had a crappy lighter that let off a weak flame, providing me with a pathetic amount of light. I was basically walking through this building blind. I couldn't see anything. All I could do was hold on to the walls, and use my photographic memory to guide me outside the building. It took me a while, but I eventually made it out the front door. But once I was outside, that's when the challenge really began. Yet again, I had to use my photographic memory and just hope that I was heading in the right direction. These woods were massive, and I knew how easy it would be for me to get lost, and possibly head in an unknown direction. I'd say at least 2 hours went by of me grabbing onto twigs and trees, and just hoping that I was moving in the right direction. I couldn't see a damn thing, but then I ended up tripping over what I thought was rocks. Upon feeling out my surroundings, I suddenly realized that I was in an old graveyard that were in the woods, and what I was feeling was actually a tombstone. The good news to this was, that meant I was getting closer to getting out of the woods. The bad news was, this meant I was walking blindly through a dark, creepy graveyard. A graveyard that I always thought was haunted. I then started to get a really eerie feeling, as if something or someone was nearby. Of course, this could have just been my imagination and the thought of being in a dark graveyard, but still, it was a creepy moment. After a while, I finally made it out of the woods. I was so relieved to see the streetlights of my neighborhood. I know this may not have been a really scary story, but I wanted to share it anyway. It was a really weird experience. Your headphones are on. You can't quite see me yet, but if I stand in just the right spot, there you are. The same place you are every time I come. This time you're drinking a cold brew. Somehow you managed to reject me without even knowing it. I was really hoping you'd be asleep, but it seems you're up studying. I'll put my knife away. I suppose now isn't the best time. So for now, I'll just tap a few times to see your reaction and then go home. I already heard about the restraining order. I know I have to stay 500 feet away from you at all times. The fact you don't know I'm just a pane of glass away most nights is what makes me keep coming back for more.